The LA Kings finally play their home opener. We talk about a win over the San Jose Sharks, and it's a Feedback Friday on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love you to leave us a positive comment if you're a fan of the show. And we are on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, 20 plus years at the Fox Sports Radio Network. I'm also co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the last 18 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, the LA Kings were looking to win their home opener after a seven game, I think it was 13-day road trip. Also, you talk about the preseason schedule the Kings had. It has been a long time coming to see our Los Angeles Kings playing at home. I was out there at Crypto.com Arena. If you're watching on the YouTube channel, you can see I got some belated birthday gifts. I got the new hat with the new logo, and I got the jersey, my belated birthday jersey, and it's got the insurance patch on it. We talked about this at the time. I was against it. I don't like that there's a patch on there with an insurance company, but we knew I'd break down and buy it, and I did. As for the Kings lineup against the San Jose Sharks, exact same forward lineup we saw the last few games. Anze Kopitar centering the top line with Adrian Kempe and Quentin Byfield. Philip Dano centering the second line with Trevor Moore and Kevin Fiala. Alex Turcotte centering the very good and impressive third line lately with Alex Laferriere and Warren Fogle, and the fourth line centered by Trevor Lewis with Andre Lee and Tanner Jeannot. The defensive setup would be a little bit different. Vladislav Gavrikov moving back off of the top pairing down to the second pairing, and from the right side back to his more natural left side. So we would see Mikey Anderson and Jordan Spence back up on the top pairing. Gavrikov would be with Kyle Burrows. We would have Joel Edmondson and Brant Clark as the third pairing. Now, David Rittich, as expected, was the starter in net. However, Darcy Kemper was activated from injured reserve, and he did serve as the backup to David Rittich in this game. Phoenix Copley was sent back to Ontario. My big question going into this game, would the Kings address the two areas that were big problems in their loss the previous game in Las Vegas? Special teams and being better around the net. The answer was partially. The Kings were much better around the net, their own net, and attacking the other team's net. But the special teams are still a problem. As for the game summary in this one, things started off great. The teams were introduced. The Kings were introduced, the entire roster, all the pomp and circumstance that goes along with that. Everybody feeling great with the home opener. Seemed to be a pretty big building. The renovations at Crypto.com Arena, which we'll talk a little bit about later. And everything, and the game started great. The Kings came out pretty much flying. They were certainly the much better team in the first period, and they would score the first goal as a result. Defenseman Jordan Spence scoring his first of the season to give the Kings a 1-0 lead. From there, Warren Fogle took over, scoring not one but two goals, and the Kings had a 3-0 lead after the first period. Looked like this was going to be an easy win. But, of course, the Kings could not let us enjoy an easy win, right? They would allow the Sharks to score a power play goal in the second period. That was the only goal of the period, so it's 3-1 going into the third. Now, the Kings were again shorthanded late in this one. The Sharks then pulled their goaltender for a 6-on-4 power play, and they would score with exactly 1 minute left in regulation. Fortunately for the Kings, they were able to hold off the Sharks, even though they once again pulled their goaltender for the extra attacker, and they skate off with a 3-2 victory in a game that was a lot closer than it probably should have been. Regardless, the Kings are now 4-2-2 on the season. While the Sharks remain the only winless team left in the NHL, they are 0-6-2. As for the game stats in this one, again, Kings win at 3-2. Shots on goal favored the Kings 30-26. The special teams, Kings were 0 for 2 on the power play. The Sharks were 2 for 6. Faceoffs favored the Kings 31-27. Block shots favored LA 24-13. Hits favored San Jose 39-24. But of course, the most important stat was the scoreboard, and the Kings were victorious. So my big takeaway from the game is that right now, the LA Kings are good enough to beat the teams they're supposed to beat, but probably not good enough to beat the top teams in the NHL. A 4-2-2 record after 8 games is certainly not bad. And if you told me the Kings were going to be 4-2-2 after the first 8 games, would you take it? I'd say yes. But let's be realistic about who the Kings have beaten. They've beaten the Sabres, they've beaten the Canadiens, they've beaten the Ducks, and now they've beaten the Sharks. Those teams did not make the playoffs last year, and those teams are not expected to make the playoffs this year. The Kings have lost in overtime to a good Bruins team and also to the Ottawa Senators. We're not sure what they are at this point. Maybe they're improved. Maybe they're a team on the rise. Boston made the playoffs last year. Ottawa did not. The Kings have lost in regulation to the Golden Knights and the Maple Leafs. I would say both those teams have outside chances of winning the Stanley Cup this year, but they're definitely playoff teams. So the translation, I believe, at this point is, again, the Kings are good enough to beat teams they're supposed to beat and probably not good enough to beat teams that are elite in the league. Now, is there still time for the Kings to improve on some things, to try and be a team that can at least compete with those types of teams? It's possible. But again, right now, there's still a lot of work to be done. Maybe that's to be expected at this point. Maybe if you want to be extra positive about it, to say the Kings are not firing on all cylinders. They're not getting consistent efforts from some of their stars night in and night out. Drew Doughty has been out, and they're 4-2-2. Under those circumstances, pretty good. But that's my takeaway from the Kings at this point. Good enough to beat the teams they're supposed to, but probably not good enough to beat the elite teams in the NHL. And maybe that's what you thought going into the season regardless. So that's what I look at the Kings at the moment. Still time to prove that wrong or improve upon things and be better, but there's still work to be done. So what was good for LA? We do this after every win. What was good? What was bad? The Kings, again, were much better around the net, protecting their own net and attacking the other team's net. The Sharks really didn't get many chances close in, not a lot of scoring opportunities from the high danger areas, and the Kings attacked the net, especially that Turcotte line, which continues to be great. Warren Fogle was the alpha on the line this time. Other times we've seen it be Alex Laferriere, we've seen it be Alex Turcotte, but that line has led the Kings so far this season, and they were very good again against the Sharks. Jordan Spence, great to see him respond to, remember, being a healthy scratch, which I still say was an overreaction on Jim Hiller's part. Maybe he was sending a message. I don't know. But ever since that happened, Jordan Spence has kind of calmed his game down. He's now been promoted back to the top pairing. He looked solid defensively and also added his first goal of the season. So great to see Jordan Spence responding. I thought Brandt Clark was good in this game. He had an assist. Also, he's tied for the team lead in assists with 5. And I love the way he always has his head up with the puck on his stick at the point. He's always looking for an opportunity to put the shot on net. And I don't think he's ever really looking to score for the most part. He's going to score when he takes the puck to the net and looks to fire off a wrist shot. Those wrist shots he puts on from distance are specifically to get the puck in a high danger area, to get the puck on net or towards the net for deflections and rebounds. And when he sees that opportunity, when he sees a teammate going to the net or he sees a teammate in a good position with a stick free in front of the net, he does a really good job of getting that puck to that area. And I really like that about his game. I thought he did a good job with that, putting it on display in the win with the Sharks. Goaltender David Rittich was good, not spectacular, but certainly good enough. As far as what was not so good, the special teams. The Kings, if they're going to do anything this year, they have to get better on special teams. Right? If they don't, then they're going to be that team exactly what I said they are. Beat the teams that are not very good, probably not beat the teams that are good. And too many penalties again. 6 power plays for the San Jose Sharks. I mean, even a bad team like San Jose is going to convert, you would think, at least one of 6 power play opportunities. You just can't give a team that many opportunities, even if they're not great on the power play. And you got to get something out of your power play. It's just the special teams are just really bad right now. It's got to be addressed. They've got to get better at it. If they don't, again, it's just going to be they're just going to be an average team. I don't want to beat a dead horse here. The last couple shows I've been pointing out Kevin Fiala's not getting it done, and in this game against the Sharks, he was once again a minus, where he needs to be a plus more often than not. He took a dumb penalty late in this game. He allowed the Sharks to get a power play and pull their goalie and make things uncomfortable down the stretch. You just can't take that penalty in that situation. He left his feet. He swung his stick. It ended up getting into this. I mean, he was trying to make a play, but he ends up getting his stick into the skate of a Sharks player and trips him, and then he goes to the box. He just got to be better. He's getting paid, and he's got the talent to be a positive for the Kings more often than not, and he has not really been that so far this year. And the Kings need more than just the Turcotte line. It's great that the third line is playing so well, but the top 2 lines need to pick it up. Our top 6 forwards are not playing up to the standard. 3 stars of the game as we close out our look at this home opening win over the San Jose Sharks. Warren Fogle is clearly the number 1 star. I guess you're supposed to start with number 3. I don't know why I just did that. Jordan Spence, though, is my number 3 star with the goal in this one and playing much better defense and being promoted to the top line. Alex Laferriere, I think 3rd straight win. He's been one of our 3 stars. He had 2 assists in this one. Again, going to the net, being aggressive. The guy is continuing to get it done night in and night out. And then Warren Fogle is, I think, clearly the number 1 star of this game. He had 2 goals. He had a couple of great chances at a hat trick, shorthanded. He had 2 opportunities. And one of the goals he scored was flat out just outworking the other team. Getting the puck behind the net, taking it to the net, whacking away at it. Just great hardworking goals by Warren Fogle, and he is our number 1 star in the win over the San Jose Sharks. Well, it is still a Friday fan feedback show, and we're going to get to your feedback and your thoughts on the LA Kings next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. PrizePicks is America's number 1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It is the easiest and the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Just go to the PrizePick app, make your picks right now, and you could be a winner. And you can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in most states, including California. Download the PrizePick app today and use the code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's the code LOCKEDONNHL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. As I mentioned, it is a Friday, and that means it is our Kings fan Friday feedback show or something like that. And our first email comes from Ray, formerly in Torrance, now Woodland Hills. He says, I really think the show is great because you're able to share your unfiltered thoughts on the team's performance. Comparing your shows to others, the official NHL media teams have an interest to soften any controversial opinions they may have on the league to maintain professionalism. And I think that's totally fine. And it has its audience. I just prefer hearing a more raw take, and I'm glad both platforms exist. You and The Hockey Guy are my favorite NHL coverage channels, and I appreciate the freedom you both have by not being directly affiliated. Regarding the team's performance so far, it's about in line with my expectations. This season, the team's bottom half is recently called up AHL guys. I don't expect this team to defeat top 16 teams easily due to their lack of experience. The injuries to Kemper and Doughty have exposed that even further. Our defense looks really passive lately, and it hasn't translated to more offense, which is concerning. I'm holding out judgment until the season is over, but I hope to see the promises of the preseason come to fruition. Grittier style, more aggression, more offense, make teams dread playing us. Shout out to Laffy, Turcotte, and Kobe for being on this season when the rest of the team is off. Shout out to Fiala for making me cuss at my TV because he can't maintain possession or pass the puck. Thank you for all you do, Eddie. And go Kings go. And that was from Ray in Woodland Hills. I think I agree with you, Ray. There are a few LA Kings podcasts out there. Some of them are affiliated directly with the LA Kings. Some of them are independent, like this show. And I agree with you. I think that there's room for both. And I think there's value in both. Some of those other shows that are affiliated with the Kings, they get great guests. I think we get great guests on this show, but it's because I reach out to people like Nick Nixon and Jim Fox and those type of folks. And I can't do that with Jim Hiller. I can't do that with, Kevin Fiala. Those shows that are affiliated with the teams, they have direct access to those people, and they get very good interviews. And there are certainly times where their connections with the team gives them access maybe to information that I wouldn't have. At the same time, I think you're right. I'm not beholden to the LA Kings. I am an LA Kings fan. I don't hide that fact one bit. Look at me. If you're watching on YouTube, it's pretty obvious. But I'm not, there's no issue with me saying this guy stinks. They should trade this guy. This coach should be fired. I obviously said that with Tom McClellan, where maybe I'm not saying those other people are prevented from doing that, but you can understand that maybe that's not the message they want to send out. So, like I said, I definitely think there's room for both, and I think both have their pluses and their minuses. Our next email comes from Scott. He's in Buena Park. He says, after 7 games, Vladislav Gavrikov has been the most consistent defenseman for the Kings. He's playing on his offside and 24 plus minutes a game. If he continues at this pace, I expect him to get a nice raise for his next contract, which is good for him. With that, I have a few questions for you, Eddie. What are your expectations of Gavrikov after this year? Should we trade him at the deadline if he allows us to? He has a no movement clause. Extend him before the season ends, or wait until the season ends and hope he resigns? What are the Kings' long-term prospects for left shooting defense? And again, that was from Scott in Buena Park. And interesting, Scott, that in this game against the Sharks, Jim Hiller decided to move him off the top pairing from his offside, as I mentioned earlier, and back on the second pairing. So I actually liked that pairing of Gavrikov and Mikey Anderson. Not exactly sure why they moved away from it. I'm guessing they felt that with maybe Jordan Spence moving up there, they wanted to give him another opportunity, and he thought he played well. But anyway, to answer your question, you are correct. Vladislav Gavrikov is an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. He has a no movement clause, so he is not going anywhere. The Kings can't trade him like they should have done with Matt Roy last year before the deadline. So unless he says he wants out, he's not going anywhere. He has the control. The only way I see Vladislav Gavrikov saying he wants out is if the Kings are a terrible team. I don't see that happening. Even if the Kings don't make the playoffs this year, I think they're going to be in the playoff hunt all season long. So we've seen Rob Blake not be willing to negotiate deals during the season. He likes to wait after the season. So my expectation is that Vladislav Gavrikov will be an unrestricted free agent. He will hear many offers from other teams. And in the end, I think he likes playing in LA, and I think he's been open about that. But he's also, and most of these players are, and I don't blame him one bit, they're going to go who pays them the most money, generally speaking. Now, there's some extenuating circumstances at times, but for Vladislav Gavrikov, I expect he will go to whoever's going to give him the biggest deal. Now, he may give the Kings a chance to match. He may get an offer from Team X and say, all right, here's the offer. What do you want to do? Do you want to match it? If you do, I'll stay. If not, I'm gone. So we'll see. I would not be surprised if he was no longer an LA King after this season, and that he will leave the Kings, and we will have nothing to show for it because he's got the no movement clause. We can't trade him. As for your question about what are the long-term prospects as far as left shot defensemen for the Kings, they've got 2 young left shot defensemen playing for the Ontario Reign right now. That is former second-round pick Jakub Dvorak. He's 19 years old. Also, Angus Booth is 20 years old. So those are guys playing their first professional seasons in the AHL. So long term, those guys could be possible defensemen for the LA Kings on the left side. As far as recently drafted left shot defensemen, you've got Jared Woolley, who just got drafted this year, and Matthew Mania, who was drafted a couple years ago. They're playing in junior hockey. So those would be the four names that I would put out there at this moment as possible left shot defensemen for the LA Kings in the somewhat distant future. We have a couple more emails to read. We'll also give you a little bit of a preview of this weekend when the LA Kings host the Utah Hockey Club. That is coming up next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And of course, FanDuel is there for you to bet on Major League Baseball, specifically the World Series. Dodgers taking on the Yankees. Dodgers are favored in this game. They are getting a run and a half against the New York Yankees in game one on Friday. Over under is 8.5 runs, and the Dodgers are plus 400 to win it all. Join FanDuel, browse the latest betting odds of your favorite sports and teams on the Sportsbook app, and get in on the action. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. All right, we got a couple more emails, and we'll try and squeeze in a little bit of a preview of the Kings' next game, which is coming up this Saturday afternoon in Los Angeles against the Utah Hockey Club. This is from Brian in Diamond Bar. He says, brand new season ticket holder. I'd like to say it was obvious the Kings were tired from the 7-game road trip, but that game in Vegas was hard to watch. There were chances. The Kings hit the post, but overall, the offense was totally missing. I didn't see much hustle to drive to the net, and the passing was way off. What was also missing was any sort of defense on our part. Their offense just danced around us for the most part, and were able to crash the net, literally cross-checking our goalie as they scored. I'm getting nervous that Hiller is already changing up the lines, even though they were doing so well with certain setups from the first game of the season. I'm hoping to see Akil Thomas on the ice and some of the lineups we saw from the games we won for the last couple of weeks. Byfield, Fiala, Kopi, and Anderson need to step it up. A lot should be expected of these guys, and it's been disappointing not to see them perform where they should be. I hope they get these early season jitters behind them. And after the crap out session in Vegas, that was my line, by the way. That was my very, very insightful and witty line about them crapping out in Vegas. Again, that was from Brian in Diamond Bar. Brian, congratulations on being a season ticket holder. It is definitely makes you more invested in the team when you're making that kind of investment in them. And it can be very fun to, if you're in a certain area where you kind of get to know the people around you. My wife and I are Chargers season ticket holders, have been for a while. So it's a lot of fun. So I hope you're enjoying that. So we did see Jim Hiller, go back to those lines that we saw against Montreal, against Anaheim, against the Sharks. So he has gone back to those lines. I think he'll stick with those for a while. You mentioned Akil Thomas. I continue to be befuddled why we have not seen him in a game yet. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm not suggesting he should be, the starter every game over Andre Lee or Trevor Lewis. But I don't understand why he can't get in a game or two at this point. I don't understand it. Our next email comes from Carlos. He is in Mexico City. He says, hi, Eddie. I enjoyed your interview with Nick Nixon, and I wanted to start off with something he said. Defense doesn't win Stanley Cups anymore. You have to put up 3.5 goals per game. Nick is right. We need a cold-blooded sniper. Let me play GM for a minute. If I was Rob Blake, I'd make a phone call to Toronto and propose a deal. Quentin Byfield, still potential, although he hasn't scored as many goals as you and I have this season. Quentin Byfield, either the first-round pick in the next 2 seasons or first and second-round picks next year. And if we must give up a youngster from the Ontario Reign in exchange for Austin Matthews. They should consider this because Byfield's from Toronto. Canadians are homers. They love to root for their own. More Tavares jerseys are sold in Toronto than 34 jerseys. Matthews, a California boy, belongs with us. I don't know about that. I would be very surprised if there are more John Tavares jerseys sold than Austin Matthews jerseys in Toronto. But anyway, he says 3 to 4 youngsters in key positions that they need will position them to win the cup very soon. Why do we need this? Simple. We probably only have 2 years of Kopi and Doughty, and we need to bring a third cup home now. I say it's worth a try. What do you say? And again, that was from Carlos in Mexico City. Carlos, I would say you've been drinking too much tequila in Mexico City. I love Q, but he's likely never going to turn into Austin Matthews, who is an elite scorer and likely on the road to being a Hall of Famer. I don't know why Toronto would do this. It makes no sense. Even if you throw in first round picks, and especially you look at the Kings, they're a middle of the packish team. So those first round picks aren't lottery picks. This isn't like the San Jose Sharks, who you're going to get top 5 picks from. And you might be able to justify it if you throw in some other pieces as well. So, look, the Toronto Maple Leafs are looking to win the Stanley Cup now. Austin Matthews gives them the best chance to win now. He has a no movement clause. He's not going anywhere unless he wants to go somewhere. And frankly, there's no way he'd rather go to LA than Toronto because the Leafs are closer to winning a cup than the Kings are. So many reasons why that will not happen. But it's nice to have wishful thinking. But no, that's not going to happen. And then he makes like $13 million a year, and the Kings would have to get rid of other players that fit him under the salary cap. So, no. That I would love to see it happen for the Kings. That's not going to happen. Did want to mention real quick. I was out at the game against the Sharks, the home opener, and want to say a shout out to Robert and Jeremiah from Hawthorne, Jeremy and Van Nuys, my neighbor Rich in San Pedro, Edwin and Brea, and I also saw LA King Steve out there. Great to see all you guys out there. I know there were a few others that I unfortunately didn't connect with. Hopefully, though, we'll see you out there soon. Maybe this Saturday against Utah, I will be out there this Saturday afternoon. Also, next Saturday afternoon against Chicago, I'll be out at crypto.com arena. Again, if you're an everyday, if you're listening to this show and you ever want to meet up and say hello at a game, I am more than happy to do that. As for the Kings' next game, they are taking on the Utah Hockey Club, formerly the Arizona Coyotes, who are 4-3-1 on the season. They opened the year with a home win over the Blackhawks, lost on the road to the Islanders in overtime, beat the Rangers on the road in overtime, lost at the Devils, lost to the Ducks in overtime, beat the Bruins in overtime. They love playing overtime games to these Utah. They're not anything yet, the Utah Hockey Club. They got shut out by the Senators, and in their last game Thursday at home, they lost to the Avalanche 5-1. So quite the interesting start for the Utah Hockey Club. Their star is Clayton Keller, leads them in points with 8. Dylan Gunther is their leading goal scorer with 5. Their number 1 goalie is Connor Ingram. He's 4-1-1 on the season. That's good. The record is good. The stats, though, not so good. Save percentage of .862 and a 3.82 goals against average. So that tells me that the Utah Hockey Club are outscoring their opponents at this point. It's not that they're shutting them down. As for the Kings coming up against Utah, I would think Darcy Kemper will be back in net to face his old team, sort of. He's a former Arizona Coyote. So we'll see. But again, he was the backup against San Jose, so he looks like he's good enough to be an emergency goalie. So we'll see if he starts against Utah. As for the Kings in this game, again, don't take as many penalties and try and be better on special teams. Utah, by the way, the 3rd most penalized team in the NHL, so the Kings power play should get some chances. Hopefully they can get a power play goal and try and get their special teams going. Face-off on Saturday is set for 1 p.m. in LA. The game will be televised on the FanDuel Sports Network, formerly Bally Sports West, and you can hear it on the 710 ESPN app. Also, it's going to be crazy in downtown LA on Saturday. Now, the Kings started off at 1 o'clock, and hopefully the game will be over and everybody can be out of there quickly because you've got the World Series Game 2. I think that's like a 5 o'clock start. USC football is that night, and the Lakers are playing following the Kings game. So it's going to be insane downtown Los Angeles coming up on Saturday. So hopefully you can get out there to the Kings game, and then once it's over, get out of there as quickly as you can. For you everydayers, those of you that listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day, coming up on Monday's show, we'll recap the Kings game from Saturday against Utah and update you on any news involving the Kings over the weekend. Tuesday, we'll preview the Kings matchup against the Sharks in San Jose. Wednesday, we'll recap that game and preview their game Wednesday night at home against the Vegas Golden Knights. Thursday, we'll recap that game and maybe have a special guest. And then, of course, on Friday, it's another Kings fan feedback show. Another great week coming up. Hope you'll be with us every day next week. If you want to get an email into the show for any reason, it is lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. Leave your comments if you're watching on YouTube in the comment section. And stay interactive with the show on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram. We're at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you, as always, for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend. We will talk to you on Monday. And as always, go Kings, go.